Jakob,
Sorry, I'm late.
way
I,
back.
I I I was waiting for your text,
You got it?
but it came through, but I didn't see that it came through. So
Yes.
um
Have you got an answer? Do you remember the question?
yeah. So I'll 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 start this story back when I bought my farm because that's when it really began. I bought 180 acres. There was no house on the block. I actually built a tiny house with my dad, and I had that shipped from Melbourne out there, and I just dumped it in the middle of the paddock. And I had no plumbing, no water, no rain tank, no nothing. And that was really the beginning of the shock of kind of living in the wild. I mean, I had an enclosure, I had a bed, and I had solar power, but that was it. And so I spent the next 2 years realizing just how much we actually need to live within the society that we live in. And the next 2 years, I had to hire excavators to come out and dig holes. I had to have a septic tank put into the ground, thousands and thousands of dollars just evaporating. I'm digging trenches in the clay to build pipes for the septic tank overflow. I had to build shade. I had to get water tanks brought over. I had to create more space to harvest rainwater, and there's just endless problems constantly happening. And there was a time where I was pooping in a hole for like 2 months, and the hole was 2 meters deep, and the hole filled up. There was that much. So if it's too much information, but I mean, this is the reality of
No,
the planet that
yeah,
we live in. I mean,
it's
it's
true.
it's and then when I get to use a toilet where I can flush, it's like, oh my God, this is an
Luxury.
incredible thing. And I'm thinking nobody ever appreciates any of this. And sometimes I'm still on the toilet and I do a poo and I flush and I'm just like, that's a beautiful thing. It just disappears. It's just gone. Like it's the poo disappears into the matrix. I don't know where it's going. I'm like, what an amazing thing, because as soon as you leave a home, you have to take care of all your own poop. You have to dig holes. You have to bury the holes. You have to wipe your butt in the wild, and then you have to find somewhere to wash your hands. There isn't running water everywhere. And if there's a lake, do you want to be washing your hands that you just went to the toilet with in a lake that you might need for drinking water? It's a harsh world out there. And the amount of people over the years that have said stuff to me like, oh, I just wish I could, go and live in the wild and everything. I'm busy.
Have you got a tennis ball?
I'm busy.
He's just as blunt with the family. Keep going.
I've lost the train of thought. The amount of people I've had messaging me saying things like, what I do to just go away in the wild and all this. And I'm like, you have no idea. I'm like, people just want to just, sell the house and go live in the wild. I'm like, it's a freaking fantasy, mate. I'm like, you're not gonna, I'm like, it will crush you. It will destroy you. Within 1 week, you'll be crying and begging for suburbia again. And the hardest part for me personally isn't the journey into the wild itself, but realizing how dependent everybody is on
Mm.
suburban lifestyle. On your bed, mate, on your bed. And it's everyone's so hyper dependent. And when I come back into suburbia and into cities after living that life, I'm looking around at everyone just thinking that everyone's really soft. I think everyone's grown really soft and dependent. And in any kind of tragic scenario, it's like things are going to be very hard mentally for people. And it's really easy to find things that aren't important to be mad about when you have everything that you need all the time. People don't. It's we've lost appreciation for everything that we had. Like to walk into a bedroom and flick a switch and the room is illuminated. Like that's a freaking incredible thing. But nobody ever gives a single second of appreciation to that luxury. And the same thing with a toilet. Nobody appreciates toilets at all. There's no appreciation for it. But it's probably my favorite thing about modern society. Next to, if I had to choose between having a toilet and having lights, I'd pick the toilet.
Yeah, so true. Same.
The,
Well,
the, the, the
I heard
toilet's a
someone saying
beautiful
the other
thing.
day, Jacob, about this has actually caused like technology and the growth in society led to a point where it's really separated the modern man and woman because the man is not outwardly seen to be building all the infrastructure and all these things that would have been done in the past, and especially like in tribal times, that the woman sees that all of that is just provided for her, and therefore she doesn't need the man because all the infrastructure and the money, and she can get all those things herself, right? Because it's all been handed on to
Mm.
platter for men and women. And therefore the woman's like, well, what the fuck do I need a man for? Because I've got
This
all
this
Point.
I've got all this stuff.
this topic is my specialty. I've put so much into this because I've been paying a lot of attention to what modern women have been evolving into. And I know there's a lot to be said about men as well, but I'm a man and I'm looking at women. I'm not looking at men as much. So let the women speak on the men, and I'll speak on my experience with modern women. And I think really deeply about all these things. And I've realized the other day that the whole independence thing that women are on now. A lot of modern women not needing men, but that what they're not seeing is that the men are bringing the electricity to the house, and the men are bringing the water to the house, and the men are taking the poo from your house and dealing with it. And or when you go to a supermarket and buy a steak, that's a man who took care of that cow and raised it and brought that meat to the supermarket. But all of that is vanished. There is no production line of where things are coming from. And if you take a feminist, for example, who believes they don't need men, and show them a map of just how many men are involved in bringing everything they need to their house, they'll realize that they're still 100% dependent on men.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
because they're not seeing it directly how they
and
were
the,
years ago.
the problem that we're having as a society today is that men, as you say, have been removed from these roles publicly. And in a village, it used to be that the women would know that without men, they'd be fucked. Without men, they wouldn't be bringing the food home. They wouldn't have security for the village. They wouldn't be building the plumbing to bring the stream that lives 20 kilometers away down into the village. And there was such a deep, sincere appreciation, like, wow, men are doing all these amazing things, and we need them so much. And that's all. It's all gone now. It's all gone now. They just come home, like I said, they flick on the light switch. They don't realize there's 30 men involved in bringing that light, bringing that illumination to their home. It's the appreciation is gone.
And it's interesting because even when I was traveling on my own, I couldn't even articulate how much I appreciated being able to go to bed and have my husband next to me at night
Mm,
after traveling alone.
mm,
Yeah,
Because that's
and just the comfort of having the
right.
security of
But
the
when you're in the city and you've got surveillance and you've got cameras and you've got locks and you've
true.
got the police and you've got that thought isn't there. But when you're in
mm,
the bush and you're camping at free site and you're camping on the side of the road and it's dark and you're pulling up and there's other people around and
mm.
they're watching you and you know that is constantly as a woman. And it's interesting now because a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you're not traveling as much and rah rah. And there's a part of me that is wanting to settle more, but there's also a deep part of me that just the feeling of my central nervous system, you know,
Mm.
having a man around as opposed to traveling on my own, you know, it's starkly different. And that was something that I found so interesting actually, because I was once a feminist, Jacob. I've come a long
That
way.
doesn't surprise me, Madeline.
Yeah. And it's still an internal battle, you know, I go through, but
I
it's
know.
yeah, but it's very
I can
interesting
see
though.
it within you. Sorry, continue, continue.
I know
That's online Jacob showing his face there.
it comes out sideways sometimes. Yeah. Like get down, get down,
That
get
was
down.
on purpose. That was on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was that was out of everything, you know, out of shitting in a bag and not having a shower and having to find food and not having fuel and almost running it like all of the things that went wrong while I was on the road, that was
Mm,
nothing compared to at night, that sense of I
mm.
really get that now. I really get
Yeah,
the safety and protection that comes with a man. And it's yeah, it's just an interesting thing because I think it's even probably the same for people that live rurally and in the bush. Like there's a lot of transgender stuff and all that very central to city areas, but you do not
mm,
see it in the country.
mm.
And I sometimes wonder if that is why that there is still an appreciation for men in the country, you know,
There
especially
is
because
for
there's a lot of
sure.
laborious work and
Well, there's a clear distinction between what women can and can't do and what men can and can't do. Because as soon as a brown steak is in the house, the girl screams and runs for the man, and that's a very common thing out in the country. And there's so many things where it's like, I need the man for this. A lot of farms are self-sustainable, and so many things go wrong all the time. That's a really normal part of really taking responsibility for everything that you have. When something
mm,
goes wrong, it's like the solar power isn't working. I don't know. I've never met a single woman that has ever been able to wire up their own solar power. And it's like the power goes out. It's like, I fucking need a man here now for this. When I was in the van, I'd made this romantic connection with a girl. and we traveled for a year together. She had her van, I had my van. And before that, I was alone in my van for 2 years. And it got to a point where we were sleeping together most nights in my van. And after a couple of months, I wanted to inform her of how my life had changed in a harder way since we'd started sleeping together. Because when I slept alone, I slept very peaceful. I was in bliss every night, no concern. And when she was in my bed, I would wake up at 3 a.m. to a sound of a branch falling because I'm thinking I need to kill someone because my woman is in danger.
Right.
And my sleep was incredibly disturbed. Every single night, I would wake up at least once to a noise because I'm hardwired for security. And I'd wake up and I'd be looking out the windows, and yeah, she'd just be sleeping like a little angel there. And she doesn't know any of this happens. And I eventually told her, and I said, look, I've realized I'm actually sacrificing a lot of my own personal peace and central nervous system to keep you safe. And I just
Wow.
really wanted to let you know that it's actually kind of affecting me. I'm waking up a little bit more tired, and I'm actually giving an incredible part of myself to you that you're actually not seeing. And she goes, you know what? I feel so good when I sleep in the van with you. I said, I sleep like a baby. She's like, I don't sleep as well in my own van. And
Mm,
it was a big moment for me as well because oftentimes men don't realize what they provide either. That's a huge problem on
that's
the
right.
male side is men are forgetting how valuable we actually are, and they're lowering their standards of what they deserve as men and what we can
Well,
provide.
you're
And
right. You're right
So
about the
true.
sleep because women, they say women will wake up to a baby, like the smallest sound of their baby, and the man won't. And they're saying like a lot of women get angry because the baby be crying in the other room, and the man won't hear it because he's not tuned that way. But
I'd
it's
sleep through
exactly what
it.
you said. But yeah, any disturbance noise will wake the man because he's wired to protect.
And I get that in houses as well. It's not unique to vans. Like if I'm like I've had 8 relationships in my life, and I've slept in a lot of different houses, and it's the same thing. If I'm even in suburban area, if I hear anything or any kind of disturbance, the first response is protect the woman, and I'm waking up. And my central nervous system is completely fried, and I'm fight or flight. There's adrenaline coursing through my veins upon 1 millisecond of my eyes opening at 3 a.m. and I'm making sure everything's okay. And it's it took me a long time to realize that that was actually a service I was providing because in the moment you're just like, oh,
Mm,
there's danger, and the awareness doesn't always go there. But after being in the van and spending a lot of time focusing on my own awareness, it's a powerful realization that a relationship is a very serious thing, and
mm,
accepting a woman into your life is a very serious thing because what kind of changed for me as well is I thought I'm giving all of this to you, but I asked myself, thought, what am I getting back in return for this? Because I'm losing a lot of sleep, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is something I want to continue. I started to enjoy it more when she slept in her own van, but I found the problem didn't go away either because she was actually further away from me, so there was more danger involved. Because when she's next to me, I can protect her. So when I wake up at 3 a.m. and I hear a noise, there were times where I'd gotten out of my van at night and looking and making sure that everything was okay because she was a short woman. She had no means of self-defense whatsoever. Really peaceful girl, and it was so much energy always going towards keeping her safe. And so I started feeling like there was beginning to be an imbalance in the relationship because of how much safety and security I was providing and looking after her. But she wasn't seeing that. She didn't see that either. But when I explained it to her, she started to understand. But I started to ask myself, is what I'm getting in return for this relationship worth my central nervous system not being as peaceful and calm as it could be? And so I had started naturally requesting things. I was like, "Do you mind cooking me dinner?" Because if you can make me dinner, you take a huge stress off my life. Because for some reason, cooking comes a lot easier to women than men. I find it difficult to put a meal together. I don't know why my brain does not like that. But if it comes to fighting to the death to preserve a life, I'm all in. And so it started really dawning on me just how broken society is because a lot of
mm.
women aren't realizing how much men are losing just being that security guard. And I think that I couldn't think of anything that she could provide to me that would balance that out. You know what I mean? Because sex, for example, is a mutual engagement. She benefits from sex, I benefit from sex. There is no imbalance there, but I'm losing a huge part of myself being the protector. So I need something else to balance that. Otherwise, this relationship is unfair. It's just simply unfair. And so I started saying to her, like, I'd really appreciate it if you started cooking for me. And so she did. And so she was making me lunch here and there and dinner here and there. And then I had felt there had been balance brought to the relationship.
What about
It
you,
really
mate? When
shows.
you have to sleep by yourself, do you not sleep well when you're by yourself, or
Sleep like a freaking baby, man. I sleep
no,
like a
No,
brick.
Madeline, I mean.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, no, I'm totally, yeah, no, I don't sleep well on my own.
Because
Like
I mean,
I I wake really easily. Like if I hear stuff outside, like I wake really easily. But if yeah, if I'm with yeah, when I'm with Ash, I just yeah, I sleep like a log. But it makes you really think about how important it is for a man with commitment. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like because one of the things I hear a lot, and this is from a female perspective, is like men don't commit. Like, why don't men commit? Like, why can't they, but this actually brings light to there's a whole other level that I think is misunderstood and not really grasped about how important the concept of commitment is because we're talking more than just emotional. We're talking
yeah,
biological, physiological,
yeah.
actual changes that happen, So it's just a really, I mean, it's just a really, I'm really enjoying this chat. Like it's really, really
It's a great
interesting.
point. Yeah. Oh, do you know
oh.
what,
I
Jacob?
felt a
I
lot
couldn't
of
when I've had girlfriends too, and like we didn't live the same, but like when they slept over, I couldn't sleep, and to the point
Mm.
where I'd have to go sleep in the other bed. Like,
interesting. It's interesting,
but
isn't it?
then it took me like 6 months of sleeping next to someone till I could even have a half decent night's sleep. And to the point where I'd go over and then I'd say, I have to go home. I cannot sleep in your bed. I will not
And
sleep.
what did you think it was? Like now that you're hearing this, like what did you think it was
Well,
then?
it made me think of it differently. Well, I just purely thought it was their energy being in my room and that I was so, I sleep, close my eyes and I'm asleep. And I can
Yeah.
sleep on a concrete floor, I can sleep anywhere. But the moment I've got a woman next to me, and I tried both things because I heard energy moves from the left. So I tried making sure that they went on the right side of the bed. So,
There is a
which is really, it's
Your feng
hard, isn't it?
shui bedroom.
Because I thought about this in Australia, and like, because in America, you're on the left-hand side of the car, right? So you're
Mm.
more impacting the passenger. Whereas here, if you got a woman going crazy, yelling at you on the left-hand side of the seat, it's like that energy's moving. That's what I've heard, and I think it
that
makes sense because
yeah.
that's the way that um, the jet stream moves on the planet too. It goes west to east.
Mm.
There's something to be said about sharing the energetic fields of someone while you sleep. I have a huge problem with this as well. I've found that in my past relationships, I'd never liked them sleeping over because I just wouldn't sleep as well. But this is completely separate from the security aspect of it. It's rest is a sacred time, and you're spending 8 hours straight. And when you're right next to someone, you're mingling your energetic fields, and everything they're feeling and thinking is being absorbed into you, and vice versa. And you wake up, and there's some kind of bond that gets created that I actually don't believe is healthy. I believe that everyone should be really individual. I think most people should be more individual than they are these days. And I find that I do not sleep well because I wake up feeling tired, like very tired, and I started playing with that once my awareness came to it, and started experimenting sleeping on the floor on a mattress on the other side of the room and waking up a lot better. And I started looking into it, and it's something that I think is very overlooked as well as sharing so much frequency with somebody else. Like we are all individual beings. Like, yeah, there's a collective consciousness, but our bodies are entirely independent, entirely individual. And I don't think the idea of merging with another individual is ever really going to be a good idea. But apparently back in the 60s and 50s, apparently it was quite normal for people the grandparents to have separate rooms or at least two single beds in the room. And I really like that
Yeah,
idea.
my
And I can't
grandparents.
imagine, I don't think I'll ever share a bed with a woman ever again. Maybe like once a week on a special occasion, but like same room maybe, but different beds. I think it's essential for human health.
Well, I know
There's a
my older brother. He slept with his little boy for years, and he said he would feel like when he was getting a sore throat or something. He said I'm completely like tuned to him, and he goes, "Oh,
Mm.
wow.
he's like, did he have a nap today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he had a nap about 2 o'clock." He goes, "Yeah, I was exhausted then." He goes, "I'm so He goes, I'm so tuned to him because we sleep together.
Mm. Which is a
Well,
beautiful thing with children.
yeah, because I think there's still some cultures, I can't remember which one now, that still do, that's very normal. That the men and women have different bedrooms and they sleep
Really?
in different beds. Yep. And women like go in for fun times and then
I think it creates more appreciation as well because it's like too much of a good thing, like together every single night. Like it starts being so normalized to the point where you just lose appreciation for it. It's like what we were talking about before. You lose appreciation for a toilet when it's all you've ever known for your whole life. But when you sleep separately, and then the other person might come in and jump in your bed, it's like, well, hello, what's going on here? This is exciting. Whereas, and it brings more spark back into more chemistry back into a connection.
yeah, if it's done consciously, because I know people that sleep separately because they've become roommates.
Mm.
So I think if it's done consciously and intentionally for that in mind, then I think it can be really good. Mm.
I don't even believe in men and women living together being a normal thing. I personally I think that's something that shouldn't be happening. I always look back in time to tribal times because for the longest time humans lived in tribes in small areas, and it was always you would always sleep together as a group around a campfire or something, and occasionally you'd share the night with a woman, but most often you'd all be together but apart. And I think that sharing a space with someone else is I think it's too much. I think it's too much of someone else. I think it takes away individualism. I think in a more realistic relationship scenario, it would be like more you have like two miniature houses on a block and then intermingle when you desire to. I think that would be the most realistic thing
Well,
going.
I think
I
like the
kind of see
old
that going forward for
I think
humanity,
the
actually.
old Europeans and a lot of religious people, like I know people that are Jehovah's and stuff, and they all buy the same houses, like in the same block. So it's almost like community living in the modern way. And then, like I know
Mm,
when mum gone back to Italy where she was from, like their small town, and they all live in like one big house. Like, do you know what I mean? It's all like the grandparents on the top, and then it's there's like three levels, and it's all one family. It's like a communal living, and that was basically how it was back then. And it's like it's still
mm.
observed in like parts of Europe today that are a bit more archaic.
I think it's I think it's born out of a survival necessity. I mean, we can't afford our own houses today. A lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
families have been working together to survive, but in a scenario where we actually have abundance, if everyone could have their own home, even, living next door to your spouse, I think people would probably choose that. I think if we had the option, I think that every single individual would prefer to live alone and to have a sacred space, and the house would be really small but a lot of community spaces. So you have your sacred retreat. Everyone should have their own completely alone sacred retreat. And then community spaces where you can go any time of the day and you can invite people to your house and vice versa. I think if we had the choice, I think that's what people would choose. If we had true ultimate unlimited abundance, I think people would choose that.
Well, you know what the Indians are doing now too? You know, all these Indians coming to Melbourne. I know this, one of my mates lives in, he like basically lives in South Wharf, like right in the city, and he's got an apartment, and it's like, they're quite expensive, these apartments. But he said they're all Indians now in the last 2 years, but there'll be like five families in one apartment.
Mhm.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is how they can afford it. And then I heard this other guy, he was talking online the other day, and he said that we kind of like the Westerners, this is a problem now where we've all, as families, we're all from one town, and then one person moves to Queensland, one moves to Perth, one, do you know what I mean? And we completely
Mm,
separate as families, and everyone's got their own place, and they're struggling to pay off a mortgage. And he said
mm,
like that's how the Indian community do it. It's just like they all dump it into one property. They live easy because they've got fuck all debt because they're all, do you know what I mean? They're all. It's a completely different way of living. But that's like we were sold that kind of dream, of like having your own place in this big area, and then it just
mm.
separated everyone.
It's created a lot of isolationism.
Yeah. Cool.
Spend a lot of time alone in their house, that spend a lot of time not intermingling with society. And it's just broken community foundations because you've got big government that provides absolutely everything. And this all connects back to men not having purpose or not having their purpose seen because everything's done for us. Whereas ideally, I don't think we should be living in communities of more than 1,000 at most. I think like the largest city on earth should be like 1,000 people and have lots of them around. But I think you should know the faces of everyone that lives around you. You should know who's responsible for bringing you what. You should know who's growing your food, who's taking care of the electricity, who's bringing the water down,
And
and
crime as
we all should
well. It
be.
helps crime big time because you will know who the
It
perpetrator
removes
is.
crime. It removes crime.
Yeah. Well, that was the
Mm.
old tar and feathers kind of thing, wasn't it? Because if they fucked up in your community, you like you sent them out. Like they were in
The Aboriginals are still doing it today,
yeah.
exiling their own.
Mm.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, well, I think the path of individuation is really the path that we should all be taking. I think the opposite, the kind of um, communistic, socialist sort of path is really, which I see a lot of truther spaces and communities trying to, whether they're unconsciously or not, kind of creating that. And there isn't as much individuation. But I agree with you, Jacob, about like relationships. I think that individuation and independence in relationships actually helps relationships to thrive. I think when I see relationships and they become each other and they kind of merge in this strange way, not in
They
a
become a
healthy way.
cult,
Yeah, and
a
they just
two-person cult.
I've had friends, right? And they will get in a relationship and suddenly I don't hear from them for like six,
Mm,
8 months. And they don't do the same things they used to do. They completely change their whole life. And then,
mm.
they come out of it and it's totally toxic. And and every single time it gets destroyed through that
The
whole,
relationship void.
yeah. And the
We,
ones
we,
that I see hold their independence and their individuation and they kind of continue on that path, it's like we're building our own path and our own journey together alongside each other, but not, you know what I mean? Almost that is the union as opposed to this strange, I don't know,
becoming
becoming one idea.
yeah, you become like homogenized in like everything.
Yeah, and I see it all the time and I'm like, well, that's going to end in destruction, isn't it?
well, it takes away your ability to self-develop because when you're so devoted to one single individual, you're entirely depriving yourself of all the other experiences that other human beings have to offer you. How that experiences that help shape your character and help you grow. We all know people who have been married for like 40 years and they're both a bit fat and they just kind of waddle around and they've just been living that life forever. It's very common in Australia and they just don't really do anything. They don't really have much personality or character left. They've gone so deep into the two-person marriage cult that they don't even know who they are anymore, and they're just shells of former human beings to some extent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they stop
they
living.
form that when they form the exact same opinion about. Obviously, you're going to have common agreements if that's why you're a couple, right? But when it's exactly everything's the same.
No
Mm.
growth.
Um,
Yeah.
I, don't- I, don't- I don't know how long we got left on this one. I think we can go about another 10, 15. We're not going to do another one, are we?
I
No, but I
think
think we need a part two.
I think
I was going to say, I wanted to ask if we got time, because you're talking about the central nervous system, and like I love some of your videos about going through the NT because we're sold two completely ideas about the NT. Do you know what I mean? Especially through the media, and then
it's
even
a disaster.
and the everything that like and that to ignore the everything that's going on there. Do you know what I mean? Because like there's this white guilt that exists too that you can't say anything negative. But like I went through there myself, and like it was the most eye-opening experience for me, especially places like Tennant Creek. Like that is as
That
bad as
trip changed my life, man.
I was going to say.
That
Like
that
I've been all around the world, and that, that's where I felt the most unsafe was in Central Australia. It is.
I've got a mate who used to work battling Somali pirates, and he was given a clause that's saying you might lose your life, and he told me he felt safer fighting pirates in Somalia than he did driving through Northern Territory,
Yeah, it's
and that's saying something. But before I went through there, I um I felt like I got entirely disillusioned, and it also gave me an entirely new appreciation for everything. Because when I was up north, I always had such a disdain for Melbourne and Victoria. I hated it, and a large part of me still has a lot of hatred towards this space. But after going through the NT and then coming back down to Melbourne, I felt this unprecedented level of safety and all of a sudden the Indians and Chinese that were moving here en masse didn't bother me as much. I'm like, they're peaceful people. They're not going to try to steal my car in the night. And after going through the Northern Territory, I had two attempts to steal my car 2 nights in a row, and that was just one of the most horrible experiences of my life. It's an absolute crime-ridden shithole. The natives are given tremendous money. They spend it all on alcohol. It's an actual catastrophic disaster. And people have barbed wire up around their casual suburban homes in
Yeah, it's
Darwin.
around everything.
Businesses
Around everything.
businesses have metal spikes, barbed wire everywhere. There's security everywhere. I saw a cafe. I saw a cafe in Darwin. It was like a nice cafe, and it looks like a fucking security complex, and there's just people drinking coffee in there. I'm like, this is a disaster. I'm like, this is a growing problem, and it's not going to get any better. And in a scenario where we have some kind of world war or some kind of situation where Australia ends up kind of being alone for a while, that is a problem that I don't want to be anywhere near, not even within 300 kilometers. And let me tell you, I'm glad that there's a massive desert between the East Coast and that shithole. Seriously, that desert is
But
going to
you
save
know what,
us.
Jacob? We need that. They got like Doge that's happening in America. It's been fantastic as far as like just what it's opened up in the zeitgeist of America as far as where all their money's been going. And like they need, if they ever open up this whole Aboriginal industry, and I know they've just pumped more money into it in the new budget now, it's going to be the one of the biggest money laundering frauds that's ever been exposed.
I heard they're giving 500 billion a year to Indigenous. I haven't fact checked that,
But yeah,
but
that's it's mass money
that
laundering.
sounds like an insane amount of money.
So
That's like
no one
almost our
knows where this
GDP.
no one knows where this money's going. I know some of it goes to these
It's going
co-ops.
to Jack Daniels.
No, but like I don't even think it's even going to the co-ops. Like I don't know where it's going.
I think that all the money that they give the Aboriginals is just like a hush hush payment, a bit like how the COVID payments worked in 2020 on Centrelink. No one went to the protest when they were getting 1,200 a week from Centrelink. And I
Yeah.
think they're doing that and keeping them all happy to the point where they're also probably pocketing like 300 billion of that alleged 500 billion through, their various organizations and so-called charities. But I
Yeah, it'd be
think
the
that's an ugly rock to turn over, man. I'm sure it will be very ugly.
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, that's the first thing that needs to happen for like because what throwing money at it hasn't changed. So the first thing that needs to happen is like the exposure of this mass money laundering that's going through there. Like that would be the start, but it's
the,
so
the Aboriginal crisis is an unimaginable crisis that I cannot see a solution for. I mean, we're talking like 500,000 people that have severe alcohol issues, like brain damage from drinking and dehydration. A lot of people aren't going to like hearing this, but that's the truth of it. A lot of them are quite beyond repair. It's quite a insane asylum. I felt like I was driving through a loony bin. I felt like I was in some kind of weird hell realm. Like there's just violence in the streets, police lights everywhere. Every caravan park has layers of barbed wire. You can just hear screaming and howling of women and men and children in the distance, and you don't know what the hell's going on out there. And the problems are getting worse and worse. And I don't have no idea what the future of that looks like because the problem is rapidly
well,
declining.
with Al,
In 10 years, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be like Mad
with
Max.
Alice that most of the people that are working there are all Europeans and Africans and stuff that they're all shipping into work because no one will people just won't live there. And like I had good mates that I lived with that lived in Alice for 15 years and they loved Alice and they said they had to get out because of how bad it's got. So they said like it's rapidly got worse and worse and worse over the last 5 to 10 years.
There's vigilante groups starting dealing with the Aboriginal crime problem because the police aren't touching it. It was reported on a news channel that there's a vigilante group in South Australia. And when I posted that, a friend from Queensland had said that he knows of another vigilante group and they've created like their own patrols. It's essentially a civil war. This is edging on the edge of a civil war, but there's
Mm.
no actual real means to fight it.
But do you know what I think? Because do you remember that story of that boy that got shot in Alice by the cop? That was probably 5 6 years ago. So after that, the cops basically must have been told, do not physically touch, and they're the kid. They're running wild now because they know the police won't
Mm.
go near him. And I don't know about that case, but it's very sus that he got shot by a cop. It was blown up in the media, and then the cops completely changed the way that they dealt with him to the point where the kids are because in Alice too, it's mostly the 20s and under that are out of control, isn't it? It's the young ones.
Yeah, and there's a massive mental health crisis on top of all of it. Like I was walking down the street and you just see people there, that Indigenous there with like a coffee cup and his eyes are wide open and he's just like rocking back and forth,
Mm.
but it's everywhere. It's not just a one-off. Like every 20 meters, there's a guy. I saw a guy laying face down at the service station, just for like 30 minutes under the sun at like 10 a.m. Just lying there, and no one does anything. And I just, they've all got the 1,000 yard stare as well. I saw lots of them just sitting there, just staring off into a void. And it was a very, very scary place to be because there was no sanity left. That's what I felt like going through there, that there was no mental health remaining.
Yeah,
It felt like it was at
we're
the
not going to
end.
solve this in the last 4 minutes, but so I'm sorry to dive into that subject with 4 minutes ago.
No, that's right. We can
Mads,
cut
have you
this. We can
got
see how people feel, and then we can have another chat another time, probably.
yeah. Mads, have you got any
Look,
final questions or anything you'd like to say? We've got about four
I
minutes.
can't really dive into anything with four
Ah,
minutes left. But I've thoroughly enjoyed this, Jacob. This has been a very
yeah,
great conversation. So thank you very much for your time
I agree.
and
I think it's been fantastic, and we didn't even touch on like the Jays, which is like I thought we were going, but that's why it's good to just let it roll.
There,
I,
there were
you know
so
what?
many there were so many times it could have led off into that zone.
But you know what, Jacob? I'm I've known you for a while, and I think it's really good that people because I think you've got so much insight. You said before that you're very introspective and you think very deep, and I know that of you, and I think you've got a lot of I think you've got a lot of knowledge to share, and yeah, I just really appreciate you coming on. I think it's been good fun.
He's been getting really sucky. He's been complaining.
oh,
He's been like trapped in here with me.
so
All right,
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very, very, very kind to say. It's been a good chat. Before the couple hours leading up to this, I was having serious internal debates about what food to put in my body that would best serve me for this chat because I really wanted meat. I really want meat, but when I have meat, I become a bit slower and sluggish, and my
right.
pineal gland isn't as free. The weight of meat brings your aura down for a bit, and I was tossing and turning for ages. It took so much of my energy, and I ended up settling on a smoothie. I had two bananas, 10 strawberries, and 2 tablespoons of honey. I decided against the meat, and it's something I want to talk about with you guys. Actually, is the interesting aspect of meat while being on the ascension journey, increasing empathy, but still requiring to kill animals. It's a very hectic topic
Yeah.
that
Oh, I'd love to dive into that.
has a lot
Okay.
to
Well,
be
I think you're going to
said.
have to be a return guest, Jacob. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this chat. Have we got any announcements, Mads? Are we still doing the podcast? It's been like 5 months. Are we going to do any more? Are we back?
Well, this is a
Oh, we're back.
podcast.
Hey, well, we'll see what's up next.
You guys are good
Thank you so much.
facilitators, good questions, good hosts.
Oh, thank you, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been so good.
All right. See you, mate. Have a good one.
All right, see you guys.
Bye. All right, that was good. Well, what do
My
you
heart goes out to you.
I always find
My heart goes out to you.
was he holding his belt though?
Oh yeah, that was a good one you sent me. So apparently,
Mm.
look at all the ones where Hitler's holding his belt, and what does his belt say? It says Yeshua or God or something
Yeah, in the name of Jesus or
in the
something like
name of
that.
Jesus. So he
I
holds,
Mick
haven't
got
seen that.
Mick God or something.
yeah, whatever it means in German. Yeah, have a look at the ones where Hitler's holding the belt, Jacob. So he's holding the
I haven't
belt.
seen that, surprisingly.
Mm,
I'll send you the video of Michael
yeah,
Stern speaking.
interesting. I'd never heard it.
What's the ETA for upload on this?
I'll try to get it up tonight. If not, it'll be early tomorrow morning.
You got to edit the 3 videos together,
I'm
and
gonna put it all together. Yeah.
you said you put the audio on Spotify. Do you know what's funny? I've been getting recommended D's videos, D and Annette on Spotify, and it's freaked me out that Spotify knows that I have any connection to that at all.
Yeah.
Because my Spotify account is not connected to anything, and I open Spotify and I see D's face there. I'm thinking, how much are we fucking being spied on? But what I'm getting at is that I I didn't know you could put videos and podcasts on Spotify now, so you can
Yeah,
do that.
you can do that.
So you can put the whole video.
Oh no, I went to do
And
that once. Madeline doesn't like that, and I smoked too many darts. But if yeah, pop some clips.
Part two, we
But
will. Part two.
this is actually about to cut out. So I'll see you later.
Maybe part two when you've got it rolls into one.
Okay. Okay.